Hey Brody, did you hear about the ERO posting for Dofasco?
Hey, Lucia. No, but they're a pretty big deal, right?
It is a pretty big deal, and that's why Hamilton 350 is making this little quick explainer to help people understand what's going on, what they can do about it, and help people to get their comments in before the deadline on March 12th. So let me share my screen so you can see what this whole ERO thing is. ERO
Okay.
stands for the Environmental Registry of Ontario. This is where the Ministry of the Environment is required to post things that are in the public interest, things that the public needs to comment on, and this posting right here is for environmental compliance approval. This is going to provide what's called limited operational flexibility to ArcelorMittal Dofasco, or AMD, as I might call them, just to shorten it up. But AMD is looking for basically limited operational flexibility on air pollution and noise pollution. And the concerning thing about this application, there's a few. First off, there's a lot of information that's missing. So previous versions of this agreement, which have expired, which is why this is being proposed, they had things like the upper limits on air pollution, which were like above the provincial standard. We know that Dofasco is well above that, but it at least was a site-specific standard. That's expired, and Dofasco has actually been operating for the last couple years under what's called an abatement plan, which doesn't have any actual monitoring requirements, specific limits on carcinogens like benzene or benzoyl, which are really big concerns for air quality and Hamilton health. So there's a lot of details that were in previous versions of these agreements to do with site-specific standards that are not there. There's no expiry date. We don't actually know when this limited operational flexibility is going to expire, and previous ones had that expiry date posted. So first off, right off the bat, just a couple red flags of wait a minute, all the details that the public needs to comment aren't here. So definitely we want to raise that as a concern. The other thing we want to raise is that there's some aspects of the whole process of modeling emissions from a site that don't actually take into effect the cumulative impacts of emitters in Hamilton. So as people know, Hamilton is not just AMD. There's Stelco, there's Rain Carbon, there's lots of these companies that all operate in Hamilton, and each one of them gets an approval in a silo. So they model for themselves and they make sure that the air pollution and stuff that they emit would not be too high. Like we're talking about those site-specific standards again. The problem is that there's lots of them. So Hamilton residents aren't just breathing the pollution from Dofasco. They're also got Stelco, Rain Carbon, and all these other people polluting the same air. And so the cumulative impact is way higher than what the individual emitter does. So that's another thing that we definitely want to bring to the ministry's attention. Something else that we want to talk about is monitoring. So the current ERO that's posted here for AMD doesn't include things like fence line monitoring, or continuous monitoring, which are two good things to have. So fence line monitoring is literally you can think about the fence line of the property having continuous monitoring. So a little device that's just always checking the air, particularly for benzene, because this is a really big concern. It's a carcinogen that the province is saying that they need to regulate for people's health. We want to make sure that we have that because, there's a really big gap where sometimes what really is happening doesn't match up with the theoretical modeling. And in order to be able to see that and to catch that, we need that real world monitoring and that real world data. So these are all the kinds of things that we want to talk about for this ERO posting. And as you can see here, the time is of the essence because it closes at 11:59 p.m. on March 12th, which is next Thursday. So Hamiltonians need to get their comments in. The other thing really to mention in these comments is that Hamiltonian, we're people, we have personal stories. People, not only people who live very close to these emitters, but people across the city. We all have health impacts from this site. And people at the Ministry of Environment need to hear our voices, need to hear our stories, need to hear these personal impacts, because it's not just numbers in a model, it's actual people's health and lives. We're talking about sulfur dioxide, we're talking about particulate matter, we're talking about benzene, we're talking about benzoate. Those are two things that give you cancer, they're carcinogens. Noise pollution for the people who live near the site is also a huge concern. So, like, these are people's lives, and people at the Ministry of Environment need to hear that as well. So, does that all make sense?
That
I know
makes
we
a
just
lot of,
covered a lot of ground.
yeah, that was a lot. I'd love it if you'd show me a little bit more and show the rest of us how can we go about doing this comment.
Yeah, okay. So all the different things that we talked about, don't worry, we're gonna have some additional resources. But what we need to do is we need to submit a comment on the site. So the link to this is one of those additional resources that'll bring you to this webpage. It's going to be on our website and it's going to be in the description below. And then when you get here, you have to submit a comment. So, pro tip, make sure that you have your comment ready to go in some other document, whether it's a Google Doc or a Word doc. Don't be typing on the web page because next thing you know, your browser refreshes and you lose everything. So, you can register if you want to get alerts for this project, but you can also just comment without registering. Like it's not something that you need to do. And then here is where we're on the submit a comment page. So, if you had some supporting links or some other resources that you wanted them to be aware of, you could add them here. When you're commenting on your own behalf. I assume none of us are lawyers, so we're going to be commenting as individuals. And what you do is it's really simple. You just copy and paste your comment into this form, and then we go ahead and we will submit comment. Great. So our comment has been queued for review and will be pushed after approval. What does that mean? It means that the Ministry of the Environment doesn't show any of the comments until the deadline closes. So your individual comment will not be shown right away. Don't worry about it. It doesn't mean something's been wrong, but after the comment period expires, then all of them appear. So however many Hamilton residents comment, we'll be able to see everything, all of them. They'll be permanently publicly available on the site. So as you can see, it's not super hard. It's easy to do. It's important that people do it because this is how the ministry is gonna improve the policy that's currently there. So yeah, I
That's
don't
really
know. Any final thoughts?
that's really helpful. I think I'm under the impression that it's really important that we as citizens and locals try to write our own individual kind of perspectives in our comments, because I've heard that sometimes what the ministry is doing is if they sense there's a form that is being used by people, they just lump them all together and it doesn't make nearly as much of an impact, or they don't take it as seriously, unfortunately.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this up because this is an important point. You might be wondering, like, come on, guys, like Hamilton 350, just put out a one-click form submission that like automatically does this for me so I don't have to think of my own comments. Well, it turns out that the ministry really does care about your own comments. They care about hearing from individuals as individuals, and they treat that as being more important. So if 99 people submit one form letter and it's all the same form letter, they really kind of treat that as one perspective versus when people submit their own individual stories, individual comments, and it's clearly like organic content. It's not something that's been farmed through like a click campaign email thing. They take notice of that. And sometimes even a small number of comments, like if we got like 20, 30, maybe 50 really good comments from local residents, that is honestly enough to make them take note and to look into this further. So, just again, giving the top highlights of things that we want to be asking for. We want more information about this agreement. We want to know what the upper standards on the pollution are and how frequently it's going to be monitored and when it's going to expire. We want to know that they're taking into the impact of the cumulative emissions into consideration. We want to know that they're monitoring what's going on. And we want to encourage them to be monitoring not only at the the emission source, but actually at the fence line. And we want to include our personal stories of like how this impacts us as Hamiltonians. Did you know, Brody, that this is the single biggest population of people located really, really close to a large industrial emitter? There's something like 80,000 people that live within 1 kilometer of this site. Like, there is nowhere else in Ontario where it's so concentrated. And the vast majority of Hamilton's population of like over 600,000 people is within 10 kilometers of this site. We're all being impacted. And so that's really important for them to hear as well. This isn't, to negate the harms caused to smaller communities, because those are really important too. We know that normally the fence line communities tend to be rural, remote, northern indigenous communities, and they feel the pain of not having the ministry take care of them. Hamilton is like that, but times 600,000, like it's that huge burden for the ministry because there's a lot of people here. Their job is to protect Ontarians, and we're a lot of Ontarians, and they need to be protecting us.
It sounds like the ministry and ArcelorMittal Dofasco need to be reminded that none of us are willing to be part of a sacrifice zone for their steelmaking.
Totally. And also that our asks are super reasonable. Like, unless you don't want monitoring? Monitoring is great. Then we all know what's happening. We have the data. We can talk about improvements. Like, no one here is saying, oh, we want AMD to close. What we're saying is we want AMD to operate with air we can breathe.
Yeah,
Full
I
stop.
thought it was just kind of along the lines of we don't want to be, I don't know, having all these cancerous things in our air just
Yeah.
to, that we shouldn't have to choose between economic prosperity and our health and well being. And I am reminded that I think AMD or Dofasco's slogan is our product is steel and our strength is people.
Yeah,
So,
it's right there on the bridge. 100%. 100%. And we can make that we can remind everybody that this is what it needs to be. Steel and
okay,
people together in Hamilton. We got to work it out.
great. This is so helpful, Lucia. So, any of the kind of tips and pointers are going to be included down in the description or on the website at Hamilton 350.
Yep,
Um,
hamilton350climate.org.
Great. And that we really want folks to submit before next Thursday, March 12th.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay,
Go make a comment this weekend. Just get it done.
great. Thanks so much.